And that sound means it's the start of another Missal for the masses. I'm your host, Gary.
And I'm Casey.
And this is the Chaplain's Assistance Motorpod. This is the podcast that's centered around the vehicles, playsets, and even trailers of the G.I. Joe, a real American hero toy line from 1982 to the present day. We also talk G.I. Joe and connected comics, and sometimes figures and other military and adventure toy lines and their associated comic books. So, Casey, how are you doing? We're recording this before Joe Fest, but according to the schedule, this will be coming out after Joe Fest. So I'll edit this to hopefully be out right after Joe Fest. And so, Casey, how you doing?
Doing really well.
Yeah. So you ready to talk a vehicle, playset, or trailer tonight?
Sure.
All right. So for the listeners out there, obviously you've seen the thumbnail and you've seen the caption. So we're talking about 1987's Persuader. And if you're new to the show, we typically go in the order of, we talk about the box as it appeared in shelves in 1987. Then we talk about the vehicle driver, of which this is Backstop. We'll go over him. And then we move on to the blueprints for the Persuader. And then we actually move on to talking about the toy itself. So Casey, thanks to 3D Joe's in Carson, Texas, we got a beautiful Persuader on screen for this audio podcast. So how about you describe it to the audience?
Well, it looks like a futuristic tank. Missiles on both sides. That looks like a laser cannon on top and a smaller one underneath it, but still on top. I mean, just full disclosure, this is not one of my favorite toys I own. I mean, it's not bad. It's just, I don't know. The cover looks good. Jinx looks really good up there firing it.
Yeah, so this is the Persuader from 1987. Weapons do not shoot.
I love that.
The box is really plain as compared to earlier boxes that we've talked about. Nice, quote unquote, passenger side in America view. So we're looking at the right-hand side of the Persuader. You know, you got the bubble, the clear bubble with Backstop in it. And you see the helmet, you know, laying at his feet. So somewhere around there is also his pistol, and includes Backstop with swivel arm battle grip. And we flip over to the back, and then we get another right-hand side view of the Persuader. You know, reading around, it says, G.I. Joe Persuader is quick to repel any Cobra attack with an intense melee of firepower. Going around the box, we got the elevating main gun. We have 6 removable missiles. We have rolling wheels, wheel cradles pivot, shock absorbing bumper, and rotating laser gun. And then, of course, sturdy construction for rugged play, 3 flag points. And then you also have the file card for Backstop. So, you know, it's a good side view of the Persuader. Anything that you would like to note from looking at this right-hand view?
I'm trying to see if there's differences.
Not too many. My biggest one was the wheels are smooth on this version. You got slightly different pegs. So, or actually maybe not even pegged.
I don't see pegs on that.
Yeah, it looks like they were almost riveted. The stickers are a little bit different. You got like the American star is white on a black background, where the toy it's white with a clear background. And then the biggest thing is the designer, John Cassidy, got his name as a sticker on the fenders.
Yeah, I don't see the foot pegs on the back there.
Yeah, you don't see any foot pegs. That was added on afterwards.
And it looks like there's a spot for like a flag on both sides of the back, but I don't see it on there. Kind of like the stun has
Oh yeah, yeah. Now I see it. Like on the turret?
on the back, right about there is right behind the 3 missiles.
Oh,
There's
okay.
a foot
Yeah, yeah,
peg.
yeah. On the toy.
Yeah.
Okay, on the toy itself. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. It could be dual gas tanks, like in the old, like on the old Fords.
It could be. It just, I don't know. It looks like, the stun or the thunderclap, how you got the flags. It looks like something they would put there.
So looking at the box, Casey, would you buy the Persuader just based on this box, 1987?
Probably not. It's like I said, this is not one that just jumps out and says, "Man, this is cool. You got to have this." I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just out of all the vehicles GI Joe's put out, it's not one of my favorites.
All right.
But I mean, obviously, I did buy it. I have it sitting right here.
Yeah, the box is average to me. It's not selling the toy,
Mm-hmm.
but 1987, we also had Battle Core. We also had Battle Force 2000, and this kind of steals some of that aesthetic.
It does.
The biggest thing is, Jinx as the main gunner.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of an odd choice.
She came out that year, right?
That's correct. Well, cross sell is important.
Yep.
And I just like the fact, they advertise the articulating wheels, but that's not always the biggest selling point of a toy. So okay, so then we're gonna move over to backstop the driver. So starting with his file card, we have codename backstop, Persuader driver. Full name, Levin Robert A. Primary military specialty, armor. Secondary military specialty, mechanized infantry. Birthplace, Montreal, Quebec, Canada. This is the only Canadian G.I. Joe. Backstop injured so many opposing players in junior league hockey that his family had to move to the United States to escape angry parents. During his adolescent years in Detroit, he boxed in the Golden Gloves until he was barred from competition. He spent 2 terms as the undefeated wrestling champion of his high school simply because no one would get on the mat with him. After a short career in the Demolition Derby, Backstop found his true calling in the Army and eventually on the Joe team. To quote, "Don't mess with Backstop. Even though he's had more broken bones, ripped tendons, and severed arteries than anyone else in the Joe team, he's still strong enough and strong-willed enough to break, rip, or sever something of yours." So this guy's a brute. See, I mean, what's your initial thoughts on that profile?
I think it's a pretty solid profile, and I like the idea of a Canadian-born Joe. I like that.
Yeah, he comes off kind of violent, like he's got some anger issues.
It sounds like he just plays hard. Doesn't want to lose.
No, but he also does very physical sports,
Yes.
hockey, boxing, wrestling. He went from Montreal, Quebec to Detroit, which is kind of interesting. Montreal is, in relation to the United States, Montreal is north of Vermont, kind of, sort of. And Detroit is next to Toronto.
Hmm.
So that's a interesting gap going from Montreal to, next to Toronto. You would think that maybe it would be somewhere near, like Niagara Falls or something, like Buffalo. I mean, there is the saying, the mean streets of Detroit.
Yeah.
All right. So talking about Backstop, the figure, Backstop's a very colorful figure. He has red boots. He's got yellow pants. He's got a tan belt with pouches over each hip. And he also is wielding dual pistols, one on each thigh. He has a green top, which is kind of like that, I guess, turtleneck material or like whatever Beachhead wears, but it's topped with a gray armor over his upper arms and over his chest. You also have a knife in his sheath over his chest, and he is wearing red gloves. He comes with a revolver pistol and also a gray helmet. The gray helmet has a guard in front of his chin or mouth, much like a motocross helmet
Mhm.
or BMX helmet. Kind of future designed, a little bit angular with the armor design, and but just overall very colorful. So, Casey, what do you think of the figure?
Well, the helmet reminds me of the ones in Battlestar Galactica.
Okay.
Figure's okay, and it's not just his pistol, but the pistols were always too big for the Joes. So not just his, but like Downtown's was too big.
Long ranges is small.
Yeah, Chuckles was too big, but I don't know. I think that pistol's pretty not great, but the figure actually looks pretty good. Nice sculpt.
So you're a fan of the rainbow colors on them?
I mean, I would have chose different colors, but I think it's got a nice sculpt.
I will agree with you. It is a nice sculpt.
I mean, if you got a futuristic tank like this, you have to have a futuristic looking driver to go with it.
Backstop's body mold would get reused with Static Line in 1990, which was basically white, blue, and silver, a much more complementary
Hmm.
color palette. I would say it's a great mold, but horrible colors.
Yes, colors are not my favorite. I like the color green and I like the gray, but the yellow and red they gotta go.
Yeah, I will say I do agree with you that the pestle is like a scale too small or too big, so it'd probably be right at home on, let's say, a 5-inch figure. But you're right, it is a little too large for the 3 3/4. But I like the helmet. I think the helmet's a great accessory.
Yeah, I mean it really fits in with the tank.
Now, the other thing too, I noticed when they do the GI Joe figures, there's always like an anachronism, something that doesn't fit.
Uh huh.
And this guy with the Persuader, the revolver doesn't fit. It's like it's a little old tech. It's kind of like, what story does this tell? Does it say that Backstop, you know, prefers to have something older to rely on with all this new tech? Or, like, is there an EMP pulse and he can't use his laser pistol?
I don't know. I just think it was a bad choice.
I don't know. I'm fidgeting with him now, and I'm getting some neat poses. Like you said, definitely you can get some play out of this guy.
Yeah.
So this guy on his own, you get 2 accessories. This is this is a fully thought out figure in its own right before you even get to the vehicle. I guess the next stop is looking at the blueprints of the GI Joe Persuader. There are 15 talking points. We will start moving about the Persuader with item number 1, the monopulse driver operated laser cannon. So that is the laser cannon that basically sits on top of Backstop's head, right above the cockpit, molded in gray. It's a laser. It's very rectangular and angular, and it swivels left to right only. It does not elevate up or down. And then we go to number 2, the sloped driver ballistic deflection shield. So that is essentially, the windscreen.
Mhm.
Backstop sitting in the Persuader. I took him out of the Persuader to only have to put him back in.
Yeah.
So when he sits in the Persuader, his head just comes above that opening and just below the monopulse laser cannon. So it's kind of like a windscreen. We get to number 3, the raked impact deflection nose section. So that is basically what would be the hood of a car, but it's just, it's angular. We get to number 4, the reinforced tubular front push bar. So molded in the same gray plastic as the laser cannon. This features the action feature of when you push it in, it pushes back out. So kind of like the kind of like the old 5 mile per hour car bumpers.
Yeah.
We go to number 5. We get the all-wheel independent suspension. And basically it's pointing to the area, the cavity above the wheels. I wouldn't say it is all-wheel independent suspension. The Persuader is a wheeled vehicle. It has 5 wheels on each side. And the first 4 wheels, the first 2 on each side, are attached via a common axle. And the last 3 are attached via a common axle. So they're not fully independent. It's kind of like 2 pairs, but hey, it's cool. It's kind of like the Mauler in some regard. We get to number 6, the all-terrain 10-wheel drive unit transaxle. So that's cool. Where like on a tank, you have bogey wheels, which are idlers or whatever. And then you have the drive wheels at either the front or the rear of the tank, most often the rear near the engine. So this is interesting because now this is 10-wheel drive. All tires are turning all the time.
Yeah.
So real quick, the one thing is these tires don't steer on the toy. So Casey, do you think this is kind of like an old skid steer, the way it turns?
Maybe.
And then we get to number 7 is pointing to essentially the right above the front bumper. It is the high intensity integrated xenon headlamps. The other interesting thing is, so they're the xenon headlamps, but that's actually where the clips are for the front.
Yeah.
And there's no decal for the headlamps. But the way the ridging and the molding is in that area, I guess you could be like, okay, those are the headlamps.
I'm sure I would have as a kid,
And hit it with some yellow paint.
Just my imagination as a kid, that would have been the lamps to me.
We get to number 8, the quote, pinpoint, end quote, reflection acquisition targeter. So that is on top of the main cannon, this little bump that's over by the front of the tip. And, it's kind of hard to see actually on the toy. It's this little circle about the size of a pinhead. So that's the little component, I guess, that's doing the
targeting.
The targeting. It is a pinpoint.
Yeah.
We go to 9, and it's basically the fenders over the wheels. It is the Overtrack Battle Transport platforms. And we know they're a platform because they have foot pegs on each one. And the other thing, too, is there's a molded in tow rope on either side.
I saw that.
So you don't need to worry about breaking it like your Wolverine. We go to 10. We're on the Heat Wave 10 megawatt armor piercing laser cannon. So we got the old lasers. This is a laser guns.
Oh yeah.
And this cannon kind of has that 1950s aesthetic for the, like, I guess, what do you call it? Like a Tesla coil on each side of this laser. It looks almost like something that would be a graduation. It would get, the red would move up like a progress meter.
Yeah.
It'll be like charging up before it fires off.
Yeah.
It's kind of unfortunately one thing, and it's probably done this way for friction, but it's a hollowed out design. This is the same gray plastic. So if you look at it at the top and the sides, it looks, okay, laser cannon. But when you lift it up, it's hollow underneath. So it's like only 3 sides are complete. The bottom side isn't. But I think they also did that for weight because this is just held in by friction in the turret. And we go to number 11, the automatic laser stabilization system, which is basically kind of pointing to the pivot of the laser. Then we get to 12, the Dart SAM 37 250 pound missiles. Those are the 6 missiles, 3 on each side of essentially the turret. They're yellow. They clip. They don't peg into place with the dumbbell. They just clip on using like a split fin that goes, one fin goes into the cavity,
Mhm.
the other fin pinches and creates the friction fit. We have 13, the layered composite deflection shaped turret. That's for the main cannon. And then we get to 14, the AGT 1200 horsepower turbine engine generator. I like this. They're basically saying the engine is the generator for the laser. So that is really cool. So that means you knock out the engine, you're also knocking out the laser.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that's an interesting play point. And then finally, number 15, the rearward facing vertical finned intercooler radiator. That's the back of the Persuader, this little vertical radiator, I guess.
Exhaust ports.
Exhaust ports, yeah. Yeah, it's things that they don't mention. They don't mention that it's got a tow hook. The turret reminds me of the Hiss tanks turret.
Mm-hmm.
So you have the two little feet that go into just a cavity. And I'd also like to say, I like the cockpit for backstop. It has a fully molded seat in there. Nothing by the way of like gauges or handles in there,
Yeah.
but the seat at least looks like a real seat with like texture and stuff.
I do really like that decal on the back, the dead eye. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that gives it some of its the best flavor.
Yeah.
Was it? I like the fact that you're supposed to have the 4 cobra sigils
Yeah.
for like how many cobras it's knocked out. It's like this thing has seen some battle. This reminds me a lot of the Havoc, maybe a little bit simpler, but it is kind of a big tank for a lot of value.
Did it have the price when it came out? Do we know what that was?
So going on to Yojo, the original retail on this was $6.89. So for $6.89, you're getting a figure
Mm-hmm.
and you're getting a tank for 3 flag points.
Now I'm wondering if we can even call it a tank because it doesn't have the not tread but
Tracks.
tracks. That's it.
So it's not a tracked vehicle. So it is not a tank. Okay. Let's go back to the file card. Yeah, we go back to the file card, and backstop secondary military specialty is mechanized infantry, but with the primary being armor. So this kind of is, I'd say this is kind of straddling the line.
It's a hybrid.
Yeah, it's kind of armor,
Yeah.
but it's not really. Now in play, obviously backstop's got to be your tanker, right?
Oh yeah.
But in the turret, aside from Jinx, who do you think would be a good fit in the turret?
Oh, good question.
Well, it is a laser, so and this is a green vehicle. So I'm gonna start off. I'm gonna say Grand Slam.
All right.
Because Grand Slam manned the HAL.
I would say I would put either Flash or Sci-Fi in there. Laser specialists.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, those are great, great. But I mean, but this is also classified as armor. So we could put, bazooka in there
Mm-hmm.
and it's experimental. So, who'd fit in here too? Cover Girl.
True.
Because she was kind of like Doc's sidekick in the original miniseries.
And if anything happened to it, she can help work on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So any of your tankers like Steeler or heavy metal, Thunder, I think you and I are basically on the same page. We would go to our laser specialist troopers first.
Oh, for sure. That just seems like a massive laser cannon.
Yeah. Now the fact that it's a laser, would you like for me in play, I would immediately always say it would fire. Like 5-year-old me it would just be like an automatic cannon. It would just like pew 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 pew
Yeah.
pew. But older me says this thing needs to charge up between firings. Like it needs to store up a whole bunch of energy before the energy burst.
Yeah, especially with those coils on there. So yeah, that would make sense. Like you were saying earlier. I'd like to see somebody, and I know a few guys. I'd like to see them custom paint these up and see what that would look like instead of just the like generic gray.
Oh, and the cool thing is it's laser, so you can choose your color of
Hmm.
laser. Like, is it a red laser, a blue laser?
Yeah,
Chartreuse, if you don't want to go with traditional G.I. Joe colors.
I don't know if it's because I'm tired, but I keep hearing Doctor Evil say laser.
I've got a tank with a freaking laser on its head. I think the other cool thing about the laser head, I'm always thinking like essentially Kylo Ren's lightsaber, that it would fire off in front, but those two essentially they look like vents on
Hmm.
each side. It would also burst, so you'd have one burst coming out, then you have two smaller bursts coming out of the side, like a flash suppressor.
Yeah,
And then like I said, we had the molded on tow ropes on either side, but there's also a molded on winch on the bumper. So this could play in like thinking like, oh, okay, it needs to winch something, but obviously, you don't have the rope that comes out. But you know what it does have that is usable?
what's that?
A trailer hitch.
Uh, Put a trailer on that bad boy.
Yeah. Yeah. So we could use 1987 was the Coastal Defender. So this could tow the Coastal Defender to the coast. And or here's something. So you got Flash, or you know what? You got Sci-Fi manning the turret. This is towing the HAL with Grand Slam.
There you go.
So you can have 3 laser cannons. You'd be lighting up the night sky with lasers and Cobra's destruction.
Red lasers, blue lasers.
And so, do you think this would be a vehicle that the Joe team would have more than one of? Do you think this would be an experimental?
To me, when I first picked it up, like I said, I think it was just an impulse buy. I found it for like $15 and it was complete. And I thought it was part of Battle Force 2000. And I'm not a Battle Force 2000 guy. I'd imagine they just had one.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is something that, you know, now I would definitely say, yeah, they only have one. It's a laser cannon. It's not
Yeah.
conventional firearms.
Like the thunderclap, they only got one of those. They're not gonna have multiple thunderclaps or trying.
A fleet of flags,
Yeah,
rolling thunder.
yeah. I still need one of those.
Yeah, the rolling thunder is ICBMs.
Yeah.
So, but this is like that, but it's for different reason. Like the other vehicles we just named, they're just overwhelming, overpowering. So the Joe team wouldn't have more than one of those just because, you know, the least of which is budget constraints.
Yeah.
Um, and this thing, like I said, 689. This thing's a 1987. I might have tried to get my mom to buy this just because it was such a good deal.
Mm-hmm.
Fully fledged figure with a full vehicle. Yeah, this thing's value. There's definitely value in this toy. But for the Joe team, it's too experimental to be a mainline Joe tank. But I think also what hurts this vehicle is the fact that it was not in the movie in 1987, and it wasn't around for the Deke series in 1989 with Operation Dragonfire, or moving forward with later in the 80s. This did see reuse in the G.I. Joe Night Force as the Night Storm in 1988.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
I actually have one. I picked one up at a tag sale pre-COVID, and it was rough. It was missing a lot. And then I was looking, figuring out what I wanted to do, but it had a couple good parts. I found a broken Night Storm on eBay, dirt cheap, and I took the best bits from both and made one complete. And that's how I ended up with my Night Force Night Storm.
What color is the laser cannon on the Night Storm? I was thinking it'd be red.
Yeah. So yeah, in the night on the Night Storm, they took the silver plastic and made it red, and they took the yellow plastic and made it out of the same red.
But no backstop.
Yeah, no backstop. The box art they reused, and they put Psych Out in the driver's seat, and they put a Sneak Peek in the gunner seat, and that kind of works.
Yeah. I might have to make Night Force uh, a priority because I only got a couple figures and they're not even complete. And I really like Night Force.
Night Force is going to be a challenge. It's expensive.
Yeah.
It's in demand. I will say this: they definitely did some of the vehicles much better. But the Night Boomer and the Night Striker, the Boomer is the Sky Striker, and I believe the Night Striker is the Whale. You also have the APC redone. Those are very hard to get. The other ones though are kind of affordable. The Shark isn't that bad. The Night Storm is not that bad, but they still command a premium. And the stickers are all glow in the dark. But I will say that the Night Storm is better than the Persuader. It has many of the same features. It has mostly the same description on the blueprints. Just adds more. It's at 16 points instead of 13, but it's a good repaint. You would only you have one Persuader. You think you're one and done, right?
One and done.
I'm currently at 3 Persuaders only because I kept looking for one that wasn't broken. And the one that I have now, I just bought at the beginning of June because it was quote unquote complete and not broken. And I just took it out. And so I've got 2 other Persuaders. They all have issues with the clips on the cannon. So the main cannon has some clips missing. This new one I just bought, somebody took a soldering iron and laid it against the main turret. So there's a big scar that I didn't see in the package. The guy had it wrapped in plastic, but the clips are unbroken and the cannon is droopy. Where my others, the cannons aren't droopy, but it has broken clips. So I don't know what I'm doing with this one. but Casey, like you, I only think one is enough in the collection, just like one Night Storm is enough in the collection. So having one of each is enough for me. I think we're ready. Let's rate the Persuader out of 0 to 5. 0 to being you should completely avoid this G.I. Joe. It does not belong in any collection. And number 5 being this would be the centerpiece of your collection. Casey, where do you think it lands?
2.
I'm going to be a little bit above you. I'm going to say it's a 2.5. I think it's average.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't regret buying it. I got it for a good deal. It's G.I. Joe. I love G.I. Joe. O-rings, style G.I. Joes are my favorite. So it was nice to pick it up complete. I don't have to hunt down anything else to go with it. Picked up a backstop for like $10. And like I said, no regrets. It's just not one of my favorite pieces to the collection.
I think, playability, it has playability. It's just limited because of the way a lot of people play with G.I. Joes. It's not like a cornerstone vehicle. It's kind of niche.
Mm-hmm.
It's still a cheap vehicle. My complete one ran me $40, and that was complete, essentially unbroken. And, it came with backstop with his pistol. So $40, I think, was a very, very fair deal for the whole thing. But, you can pick up the Persuader by itself, like you said, like 15, $20
Mm-hmm.
all day long at a toy show. Backstop is only expensive when he has his pistol, and even then it's like $15, $20. So I essentially paid market price for mine.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I wanted one unbroken, but it's broken. Well, scarred.
It's battle damage.
But out of the three, which one do I keep? So I'll figure that one. That's my project for the next couple of weeks while we get ready to go to this is the last episode we're recording before Joe Fest. This is going to be the first episode after Joe Fest, and then we got more fun stuff coming along on the Chaplain System Motor Pod. And that concludes this Missal for the Masses. This has been the Chaplain's Assistance Motorpod, and thank you for listening. The Chaplain's Assistance Motorpod is hosted by Spotify for podcasters and is also found on many of the other popular podcatchers like Apple Podcasts and Good Pods. And anywhere, if you're listening to this, you already know where to listen to this. Please like, share, review, comment, or otherwise interact with them, as it only helps to improve and grow this podcast. For more Chaplain's Assistance Motorpod, you can find me on social media at Chaplain Joe Pod on Facebook, Instagram, and X. Or you can send an email to chaplainjoepod@gmail.com.
And if you want to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me at podcastfromthepit@gmail.com. If you want to watch us, we do a live stream every Saturday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time. And we have Instagram and Facebook.
In a fun Facebook group, it is.
It's really good.
The Chaplain's Assistance Motorpod is the strange, but not estranged, nerdy little brother of The Pint, a pop culture podcast. And with all of that said and done, one final missile for the masses: be decent to one another.
Take care, everybody.
This is a post-Joe Fest postscript to this episode. So during Joe Fest, I bought another Persuader, $10 broken towage. So that tells you where the value is on these. Not much. Did not come with backstop. So I bought this Persuader because I was still unhappy with the best one that I had. So now I'm at 4. This vehicle has haunted me for years. I've had about 5 or 6 go through my hands, and I am finally reluctantly accepting this one because now I have one that has no real damage to the plastic. Yes, it is a rebuild, but I'm still not happy with the main laser cannon. Yeah, they all droop. Every single one I tested, they all droop when it's partially raised. So that tells me that plastic is too heavy for that joint. So yeah, 2.5. Yeah, it's only a 2.5 because it was a cheap vehicle. It is average. It's not iconic. It's just a value filler in the Joe line. And I stand by my statements. I'm done. I'm not buying any more Persuaders if I can help it. That's all I have to say about that.